towns to the open road. Southern Indiana stories unfold. Local leaders sharing how they grow. Stories behind success. Real voices with the real stories next. Evansville rising, Southern Indiana strong. Making a region where businesses belong. Stories behind success.
All right, welcome to the first episode of the KrohnCast. With us today is the 24th president of the University of Evansville, Prez P. Thanks for coming.
Good to be here. The KrohnCast. I love the name.
The KrohnCast. Chad came up with it.
Just
Stories behind success. Too.
This is just like the Manning cast. Are you Peyton or Eli?
Oh, Peyton for sure.
Peyton, okay.
Got that lefty arm. All right, so before we start, wanted to touch on a few stats from the University of Evansville. You've done a fantastic job. You secured $30 million for the Federal Promise Neighborhood Grant, which is very impressive. University of Evansville is the number 2 in the state of Indiana in nursing, which is very impressive. And Harlexton over in England has doubled in size here.
Yeah, and it's the number 1 study abroad program in the U.S.
Is it really?
Yeah, we send 180 students there every semester. God, what a great experience. You know, when I was first interviewing for Evansville, got back on the plane after I left, and my wife said, "What do you think?" And I said, I love it, except I can't make out what Harlexton is really all about. Everybody uses the same words all the time. Kind of transformative, right? Yeah. It's mind-changing, life-changing. And you think, I'll kind of feel like they're reading from some talking point someplace. Till I went for the first time, and I recognized why they were talking about it that way.
When was your first time over there?
Oh, 2 or 3 months after I came in 2018.
Okay.
So I've been there 21 times.
Oh, wow.
So 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay. You get any golf in over there?
No, I've not brought the clubs there with me at all. So maybe on the 22nd trip, we'll see.
Next time, I'll join you too. All right. So just a few questions for you. The first one is a 2-parter. I want to hear about your career history and how you got here to the University of Evansville.
Well, I would say that 2 questions in a row for a lawyer is a compound question, right? So I am a lawyer by training. I practiced law for 10 years in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And then I never thought I would be a law professor. I never thought I would be a law school dean. Never in my wildest dreams did I think about becoming a university president, but answer the phone every once in a while and good things happen.
And here you are.
Yeah. So first, about becoming a law professor. We're having dinner. My wife and I were having dinner on New Year's Eve with some friends. And, you talk about kind of what the future looks like. And I said, I might be interested in being a law professor someday. And he says, I know the dean at George Mason's law school. I'll give him a call and see what happens.
Yeah.
I got a call from the associate dean the following week, and we go out to lunch. And he says, if we ever have something, I'll call you back. He called me back on August 1st and said, hey, you still interested in teaching? And I said, sure. And I said, why don't you send me some syllabi, send me some materials, we can talk about some books. He said, no, you misunderstand. Classes start in 10 days.
Oh, wow.
You want to teach? And I called my wife up and said, what do you think? And she said, well, you said you wanted to teach. So I was flying the country, trying cases on behalf of the United States for the Department of Justice. Trying to get back home on Tuesday and Thursday nights to teach a corporate tax class. And that kind of started the career in a different path.
There you go. That's quite a wild turn of events then, but you happy to be here?
Oh my gosh, it's been a great place.
What do you think of the slice?
Well,
love it.
Part of the institution, right? Always across from the university's campus. But yeah, there's so many things about Evansville that I think we've really enjoyed. Yeah. We've never lived in the Midwest before.
Really?
So grew up in the Northeast, spent time in Washington, D.C., lived in the South in Louisiana twice, lived in Florida once.
Where at in Florida?
We were in St. Petersburg. I was dean of the law school at Stetson University, so Tampa, St. Pete.
Yeah, beautiful area.
Yeah, and then first time here, and it's been such an open and welcoming place.
Good, glad to hear it. So the second part of that, and I will bring up a couple more stats. So freshman admission is up 19% here. The Evansville area students staying here up 28% to go to U of E. And the most impressive one that I saw was the 97% career success rate, where they either land a job or go to grad school in the first 6 months. So I want you to touch more on your role as president and your involvement, because I see a lot of your social media posts. You're out and about on campus, riding in golf carts, talking to kids and stuff. So what does your role, I guess, how does that impact those numbers and getting people to come here and stay here?
Well, I think one is, higher education gets kind of a bad rap these days.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are questioning the value of higher education.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some truth to the questioning of whether higher education is providing the types of things that society needs from us.
Yeah.
So how does a university distinguish itself in a marketplace that's really crowded and in which an electorate thinks that we're too expensive and we don't do very much for the community?
Yeah.
So you do two things. You try to make it less expensive and you do things for the community.
Mm-hmm.
So first, I think, the old method of universities simply awarding degrees to people and sending them off into the world and wishing them good luck might have been okay in the 60s and 70s, or maybe even in the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
But it can't be the case anymore. We have to be better for our communities.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Evansville Promise neighborhood, $30 million federal grant, $32 million in matching funds, investing $62 million back into the city of Evansville.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah. But if 40% lives in a food desert in Evansville, the university can either do something about it or figure out that it's somebody else's issue to deal with.
Yeah.
When we read the Community Health Needs Assessment Report and figure out that mental health is the number one health issue in Southwest Indiana,
mm-hmm.
the university has two choices. Somebody else can deal with it, or you start a mental health clinic to be able to address some of them.
Yeah.
So I think the university is trying to change and become a catalyst for change for what's happening in Southwest Indiana, not just being kind of a passive participant that lives on Lincoln Avenue.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of first and foremost. Second is, if you surround yourself with really good people, you have time to ride around in a golf cart.
Yeah.
And talk about the university and talk about Harlexton. And that was really kind of an intentional effort. I think the role of a president is being visible.
Yeah.
I jokingly tell people in the community I show up whether you invite me or not.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is making sure that the university is visible and is integrated into the fabric of what's happening here in Evansville, whether it's the Promise neighborhood or mental health clinic, or doing ACE care for the community. So our students do physical therapy for the uninsured and underinsured in Evansville.
I did not realize that.
So there's different ways that I think we want to make sure that we're helping Evansville grow and prosper.
Yeah.
So that I think is one. Second is, it's been a fundamental effort to make sure that students from Indiana feel like they have a place at a private institution like the University of Evansville. We created a couple of years ago an ACES Opportunity Grant Program, recognizing that accessibility issue. Everybody thinks, oh my gosh, the university's tuition is $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
You multiply it by 4, for those mathematically challenged, $160,000.
Thanks for doing it for me.
How do you make a difference for people that don't have that kind of wealth to be able to go to college?
Yeah.
We created an ACES Opportunity Grant Program. If you live in Indiana, your family makes less than $60,000 a year, you can come to the University of Evansville and not pay tuition.
Wow.
So you still have room and board on top.
Yeah.
But would you believe that the average debt of someone who graduates from the University of Evansville, I'm gonna give you a quiz. You think it's greater than $50,000 or less than $50,000?
Gonna have to say less then.
Well, based on the question, right? Yeah, it's $24,000.
Wow.
So, you look at a sticker price and you say, oh my gosh, $40,000 in tuition, right? To be able to graduate in 4 years, and I haven't even had room and board. It's got to be $200,000.
For sure.
The answer is 24,000 of the people that borrow money. So it's an accessible place. And we want to change the idea that, it's kind of the ivory tower on Lincoln Avenue.
Yeah.
We don't want to live there. We want to live on Main Street. And a big part of that is kind of changing how the community perceives what higher education is and what the university can do.
It's great. And I saw with the Oakland City News yesterday, you had a really good statement reaching out to them. So
yeah,
I think that was very nice of you to do, and hopefully you can get some more people there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. When something like that happens, it doesn't just affect Oakland City.
Yeah.
It affects higher education.
Mm-hmm.
And it disrupts pathways for students that have already kind of started their pathway.
Yeah.
And the most expensive degree ever is the one that you don't finish.
Very well said.
That should be a bumper sticker.
So if you think about students at Oakland City, not just the University of Evansville, but we all should be reaching out to their students at the University of Evansville. I hope that we can provide a pathway for lots of them.
Yeah.
But even if it's not the University of Evansville, continue your studies.
Yeah.
That can make an enormous difference. 23% of our students are first-generation students.
Really?
Think about that. 23. So 1 in 4 people walking across the University of Evansville's campus has never had a parent or a grandparent go to college.
Wow.
So when they walk across the stage as they did 2 weeks ago at the Ford Center, 500 people walking across the stage, the math says 125 of them have changed not only their lives, but the lives of their families for generations.
Yeah.
Because they have now a college degree.
It's impressive.
So pretty interesting how the perception of the value of higher education actually happens when you know all the facts.
Yeah.
And have an understanding about how a university operates. We want to be a place that's accessible for people.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to do that is making sure that people in lower socioeconomic status have the ability to go to college.
Yeah. Do a great job of it then. I learned a lot from that. All right, well, thank you for that. All right, question number 2. So from your career, whether at U of E or before that, what are some lessons you've learned or mistakes that you've learned from, whether you're glad you made the mistake and you learned from it, or you wish you hadn't have done it, that has shaped you?
Yeah, I think many people, including me, had imposter syndrome. Right? Can I really do this? So I've got a story for you. So when I was a baby attorney at the United States Department of Justice, I was a tax lawyer. I tried tax cases. Internal Revenue Service was my client.
Okay.
Yeah, most people react exactly that way. But the first case I ever had is a sovereign immunity case. And what that means is you can't sue a taxpayer can't sue the federal government unless the federal government consents to be sued. So there's a federal statute that says you can't sue the government except in these circumstances. And everybody would bring suit against the government, and you would file a motion to dismiss to say there's no jurisdiction for the court because the United States hasn't consented to be sued, called sovereign immunity. So I had my first case, sovereign immunity case, and I lost. So I walked out of my office, and the assistant chief walks by, and he says, "Chris, you don't look so good." And I said, "I lost." And he said, "Oh, it's all right. Don't worry about it. What was the case?" And I said, "It was a sovereign immunity case." And he just kind of looked bewildered and said, "Oh my gosh, Chris, we haven't lost one of those in 50 years. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is my first case at the Justice Department. I've lost a case for the first time that the government has lost one in 50 years.
Yeah.
Turns out the judge was wrong.
Oh, good.
And we got it fixed in a preliminary injunction instead of a temporary restraining order. But still, for a couple of weeks, I was walking around thinking, oh my gosh.
I thought it was like an April Fool's joke where he's like, we lose them all, actually.
No, they've never lost one in 50 years. They give all of the young lawyers their first case as a sovereign immunity case because you can't lose them. Well, except once, apparently. So my guess is that, now when they give them sovereign immunity cases, they still talk about they haven't lost any in 50 years except the one Chris had.
Except the one,
Except the one Chris
got
had.
reversed, though. So.
Yeah. So, but I tell that story because it does create some self-doubt about whether you're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
For sure.
And, higher education continues to change. And we have to change with it. And sometimes it means you make some really hard choices.
Yeah.
And sometimes you question whether those are the right decisions for the right reasons at the right time. And that has always been kind of the guiding principle for me.
Okay.
And I think that part has helped, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're confident that you're making the right choices for the right reasons at the right time.
No feeling.
Subconsciously and from a moral perspective, you think that way. But you also recognize that some of those choices affect the lives of people.
Yeah.
And that I think weighs kind of particularly heavily as you think about the role of higher education and the work that it has in society.
Yeah.
Prez P, I got an add-on question to that. You mentioned change how things rapidly change, especially in the age of AI and with things happening. Sorry, this is kind of a surprise question, but I'm sure you've probably addressed it multiple times. How is the University of Evansville and you as a president looking at artificial intelligence and the changes in the structures of kind of everything that's going on, from what classes kids are taking or what material you're going over with them, or looking at future jobs versus jobs of the past? Answer whichever one of those you want, but
yeah, I think that's probably the evolution of higher education. When calculators were invented, did we still want people to use square roots and be able to do the long math? The answer is we thought calculators for a while were going to be the end of higher education. I think the initial reaction was AI scares us. Does it really have an impact on what we can do as a university? The good news is I think the University of Evansville has embraced AI, thinking about how we can use it to supplement what's happening in the classroom. We created an AI task force, almost 3 years ago, thinking about how we can ethically use AI. Most people, when you think about AI, it's how you streamline operations. How can we become more efficient as a university in the work that we do? I think that's a really, really small component of what AI can do. I think it's the ethical use of AI that is what is helpful for our students. Maybe we think differently about kind of the homework assignments that we give to students. Is there more in-class communication discussion, which is the foundation for everything else, as opposed to go write a 3-page essay on Abraham Lincoln? AI can do that, as we know, in,
seconds.
4 seconds, maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on how fast your processor is, maybe 3.5.
How fast you can type the prompt.
Yes. But it's thinking about how you can use AI to supplement your learning, not to supplant your learning, I think is the real question.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I saw something on X the other day. Some kid just got his diploma. He flipped his laptop to the camera and he was on the Jumbotron. He's showing his ChatGPT history. They took his diploma.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know if college is the right place to use that, or at least admit you use it.
Well, I think that's part of, it's got to be part of the honor code.
Yeah.
And we really think that part's important. It's not just about the ability to understand physics or theater or art or engineering. It's the ability to know how to become responsible citizens. Yeah. And the responsible use of AI is an integrated component of all of that. The mission of the university used to be 70 words or something. That, when we had a new idea, you would kind of add to it.
Yeah.
Our mission now is 18 words. And one of the things I'm most proud of, it's 18 words. We empower each student to think critically, act bravely, serve responsibly, live meaningfully in a changing world. It doesn't say anything about learning finance or theater or engineering.
Yeah.
It talks about people growing up in college and becoming responsible citizens that can make a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. Much easier than 70 words.
Much easier than 70 words.
That's a solid one.
I like it.
The sports programs that you have in athletics, when you first came in, we were talking about the old Robert Stadium, and a lot of memories there for me. I worked at Gus Sterner's for a long time, and Don Henry was a huge supporter of UE athletics, and he always gave us free tickets. And so we really, really enjoyed that. I was there for Hafner's 65 points. What's your favorite parts about U of E athletics, and kind of what are you excited about from where it's been and where are you going?
Well, university has 17 Division I sports, 300 student athletes. Almost 15% of our student body walk around with the Missouri Valley Conference backpack, walk into class. And, we've talked about all of the different things that the university does in the community, whether it's Promise Neighborhood or mental health or PT services. But I think the way that the Evansville community most connects with the university is through ACES athletics. And sports, to me, is the front porch to our university. And it's changed a lot over the course of my tenure as president of the university. When I came here 8 years ago, if you asked me about NIL in college sports, I would have said, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
And now I think about it, our athletic director thinks about it all the time. Our coaches think about it even more. And so does the president.
Yeah.
And just for those that don't know, NIL is kind of how student athletes get paid now.
Yeah, it's revenue sharing. So it's student athletes are being paid for their name, image, and likeness. So the NCAA has a very clear distinction. There's no pay for play, but student athletes are able to be paid for their name, image, and likeness. So it's NIL, it's revenue sharing. And as part of a $2.1 billion settlement a couple of years ago between the NCAA and former student athletes, it opened up the doors for revenue sharing with student athletes. And now colleges in Division I or across the NCAA can spend up to $20.5 million a year in revenue sharing. But as we're seeing, there's lots of circumvention of the $20.5 million cap of the 16 teams in the Final Four last year. I think 12 were over 12 million, and there's reports that in A4, Power 4 football, you're going to have rosters of $45 to $50 million this year. That is such a major change from where we've been before. I've been incredibly fortunate for the last 4 years to serve on the NCAA's Division I Board of Directors. And talk about a front porch seat to all the changes happening in college athletics. I think the NCAA is trying to be much more proactive than reactionary. And that, I think, is a good thing for college sports. It still needs the help of Congress. There is some federal legislation that talks about eligibility, and that I think would be incredibly helpful, because right now, if a student athlete plays 4 years or 5 years or sometimes 6 years or 7 years, they file a lawsuit for an injunction and come back and get to play for a 7th year or an 8th year. I think the impact has been enormous on high school athletes. And that is, they're crowding out high school athletes in the marketplace, because what better way to demonstrate that you could be successful in college than being successful in college and playing against other college athletes? And so somebody has a really good year at the University of Evansville. They often walk into my office and say, Prez, I love being here, but somebody's going to pay me $700,000 to go play basketball next year. And I'd love for that to be the University of Evansville, but not with those kinds of resources.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with the idea that we find somebody incredibly talented and they go off and become successful someplace else, as long as they get a degree.
Yep.
And that's always the promise that I ask every student athlete that comes into my office that says, I'd really like to stay, but I've got to go. The numbers are just too big. I ask them, no matter how successful you are on the basketball court or on the baseball field, make sure you get a degree at some point. At some point, your career is going to be over.
Yeah.
And we want to be able for you to become professional in something other than sports.
Yeah.
And that degree really does help. So I think the landscape continues to change. Gosh, I wish we'd have more guardrails about what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you made about crowding out, high schoolers and making. I mean, the teams that you can make, it would seem, will get smaller and smaller, and some players might end up in junior college or, a lesser Division I conference or something that could have made it if those older players are moving out. So that's a really challenging thing, I think, that most people don't even think about. I haven't thought about it at any level. Yeah,
and I think one of the other most difficult parts that goes along with it is, as part of that $2.1 billion settlement, it increased the number of scholarships for student athletes. And before in baseball, it didn't matter how many student athletes you had on your roster. The university can only give 10.8 scholarships to all of the baseball players, and they can divide it up however they wanted to. As part of this settlement, there's now roster limits. So I think in baseball, I don't know, it's 32 or 34 is the roster limit. But you can give scholarships now up to the roster. So baseball programs now, if their roster is 34, can give 34 scholarships. The difficulty is they might have had 51 people on the team before. And so there is some grandfathering of student athletes who were affected by the changes in roster limits. But this is now 3 or 4 years later. They're all beginning to phase out. So when you combine the fact that people want to stay 3, 4, 5, well, they definitely want to stay 3 or 4, but they want to stay 5, 6, or 7 years. That combined with the roster limits is doing more to crowd out 18-year-olds who want to have the Division I college experience. We need some semblance of order to what happens in eligibility rules. And the difficulty is most times student athlete, if the NCAA denies another year of eligibility, goes to the state court system and gets an injunction to allow them to play. They play for the season, and before the case gets heard on the merits, they dismiss the injunction. And so you never really have a decision about whether they were actually eligible to play or not, but they got another season of eligibility. That, I think, when you put all of those things together, it makes the road to the future of intercollegiate athletics so uncertain.
Yeah.
You now have people who've signed NBA contracts who want to come back and play in the NCAA because the dollars are just so significant.
Yeah.
And I think the NCAA would say that we need Congress to be able to kind of step in and provide a framework, because while they win, I think most cases in court, it's the 1 or 2 that they lose that then creates the precedent for more student athletes to kind of follow the same pathway.
Interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of athletes getting degrees, I think Shaq just graduated with his second master's over the weekend from LSU.
He went back to LSU.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
2 masters.
2 masters from LSU.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Good for Shaquille.
One for each hand.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think Shaquille can hold more.
Probably.
So Shaquille, if you're listening, the University of Evansville offers master's degrees.
Yeah.
Also, you can fit a second one in the right hand and a fourth one in the left hand.
That's very true.
So Shaq, come to UE.
Yeah. Oasis.
It's a good one.
Go Aces.
All right. Was there anything else sports-wise that we're in, I guess, prime in baseball right now?
Yeah.
I think Indiana came here. You've had some pretty big games.
Yeah. We're actually in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament that begins today.
Beautiful day for it.
Yeah, it's in Murray, Kentucky. They were supposed to play at 11 this morning, and it's now pushed till 4 o'clock, and the weather doesn't look particularly good. But, with all of the changes happening in college athletics, it's still pretty incredible to me that a university with a little less than 3,000 students can still compete. 2 years ago, our baseball program goes to Tennessee in the Super Regional within 1 game of the College World Series. Everybody in the whole country was painted purple except for that one little
very small
orange part in Knoxville, Tennessee.
That was exciting. That was very exciting.
But I think the window is becoming smaller for universities like ours, mid-majors, to be able to kind of compete. But I think it's sports like baseball or sports like soccer. The university going to the NCAA tournament in soccer last year, having a really good chance to go again the following year, is still the opportunities for student athletes. I like the idea that the NCAA just increased the field for the men's basketball tournament from 68 with the first round games to 76. My hope is that at least half of those go to mid-majors. And does a place like the Missouri Valley Conference, which is probably ranked, 8th, 9th, or 10th of the 32 Division I conferences, does it get a second team in? That would be a really big deal.
Yeah.
You want student athletes to be able to have that experience. You still want them to get a degree, but my goodness, what a difference that it makes for the university, for the student athletes, for our city, when everybody gets to kind of watch television. And you asked me about the Slice. Slice was packed watching Aces baseball over the run at East Carolina, and then the one in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it becomes harder in sports like football and basketball because so many schools are investing.
Yeah.
If you think about the university with 300 student athletes, and you think about a Power 4 program that has an athletic budget of, pick a number, $250 million, that becomes a lot more difficult for us to compete for those same student athletes. And that makes it harder on basketball coaches and baseball coaches and football coaches to go find more of the diamonds in the rough.
Yeah.
Because the rosters of those Power 4 teams with the athletic budgets and the NIL budgets that they have make it that much more difficult for us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really nice to be the underdog.
Yeah.
And when something like that happens, when somebody makes a run, whether it was Loyola a couple of years ago in the basketball tournament, or the Aces in baseball a couple of years ago, it gives all of us mid-majors, some low majors, an opportunity to shine and recognize that that's why the big tent of the NCAA with everybody in it, I think continues to be the right choice for college athletics.
Yeah. Can we put a link at the bottom to donate to UE's NIL?
There you go.
Somewhere.
Yes. Well, that's how you compete.
Yeah.
Right. If the university doesn't have NIL dollars, we're not spending operating budget dollars to do that. It has to be done through private philanthropy.
Yeah.
But you can't compete in the Missouri Valley Conference or in the NCAA without having some people that are really interested in the success of the program.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you can attract student athletes. The first question that I don't know if you saw the interview with Dawn Staley from the University of South Carolina.
I did not.
She said something like after their Final Four run this year, that it used to be that the first question that everybody had was whether South Carolina was a fit for that student athlete. The first question now is whether they have enough money to pay for it.
Mm.
And then the second question is if the dollars match, okay, now let's talk about fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I much preferred the first one, which is, I think the University of Evansville and many others like us are successful based on culture, not necessarily on dollars. And I think that negotiation is happening in the reverse order. And I hope we can kind of put that back to the place where, does the University of Evansville fit for you? And then if the answer is yes, let's figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
As opposed to figuring out whether we can make it work first before determining whether it's a cultural fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see us go back, and I think Congress can probably help in establishing some eligibility guidelines and a framework for us.
All right. Well, last question I have for you. So as University of Evansville president, what advice do you have, whether it's for students about to graduate, students going into college? What life advice do you have for them?
Well, be open to change. Those that are, I think the word that everybody uses now is resilient.
Mm-hmm.
The word that I heard during COVID all the time was, it's being resilient students. I think it's open for the possibilities of change. The first question was, how did you kind of get to becoming president of the university? And I would say I've been here 8 years, but 12 years ago, 10 years ago, I never thought about being a university president.
Yeah.
And when I was a law professor, I never thought about becoming a law school dean. Being open to the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
The world changes all around us, and be open to the callings that might happen as a result. I think for those that are kind of thinking about leadership roles, the best thing that I think I can do is hire really, really good people.
Yeah.
And then trust them. It is not micromanaging. I don't micromanage anything.
Yeah.
No, but they're way better experts in their areas than I am.
Mm-hmm.
My responsibility is to make the connections for them, show up in the community whether they invite me or not.
Yeah.
And then trust the people once they make choices, even if I might have done it just a little bit differently, or maybe a lot differently. But if you empower people to be able to act on behalf of the university in the best interests of our students, then that's a pretty good barometer for them making the right choices.
Yeah.
So I think it's trusting people and surround yourself with really, really good people, because if they're invested in what their responsibilities are, they're invested in the students, they're invested in our communities.
Yeah.
And then I've really done my job about hiring the right people.
Good advice. All right. Well, that's all I got for you today. I appreciate you stopping by and being a part of the first episode of the KrohnCast. So
I love it. Thanks so much for having me.
Chad, or Travis, Chad, thank you guys for helping out with this, and subscribe to the next one. Episode 2 coming soon, and should be my father-in-law, Mike O'Daniel. So should be an enjoyable
Well, I'm
one.
honored to be part of episode number 1.
Yeah.
So thanks for the invitation.
Mr. President on episode number 1.
Yeah.
And we'll have you back if you're open to it.
Oh, I'd be delighted.
Have some different conversations, different questions.
Yes.
And I really appreciate you coming on and supporting the podcast. And thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Travis, as always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're welcome.
From the river towns to the open road, Southern Indiana stories unfold. Local leaders sharing how they grow. Stories behind success. Real voices with the real Prez P.